We're going to bring John Francis in. He's retired vice president for research, conservation, and exploration at the National Geographic Society. He's a marine biologist. He began his career studying the behavioral ecology of seals and sea lions on remote islands in the North and South America. A film on his work led to a role as a producer of wildlife films, covering everything from chimps and tigers to whales and sharks. He served on many prestigious boards and committees like the U.S. National Park System, the Commission for Education and Communications of the IUCN, and the U.S. National Commission for UNESCO. Let's bring John in. John, long time no see.
Hey, Joe, how you doing?
I'm good, I'm good. For those who may not have been tuning in last night, we had a great session with John and Chris Tompkins, and we talked about the amazing projects through Tompkins Conservation and Rewilding Patagonia. And yeah, John, great interview last night.
Thanks.
And I mean, those projects, all three of those projects, those videos, the landscape was gorgeous. The species they were bringing back, like the rheas and the jaguars, just incredible, those reintroductions.
Yeah, anywhere you go on the planet now, there's something to do. And Chris and her group are doing amazing work. So it was really great that you could feature her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was absolutely our pleasure. Thanks for making that connection.
Sure.
All right, John, I'm going to let you take over for a little bit, and then we'll see if we can do a little Q&A action.
All right, so I hit share here, I think.
Yep. And that first option is usually the best one, the entire screen.
Yep. So, I'm sorry.
That's okay. You just have to go down to the PowerPoint down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm sorry, I forgot my drill here. Thanks.
That's okay. John, one more thing. If you want to hit the hide, we'll get rid of the little white thing as well.
Yeah, that's good. And I can just start talking now. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I am really delighted to talk to people today. It's kind of an unusual presentation because it's a very personal perspective about what I care about, how I came to appreciate biodiversity as a important issue, focal point for me and for the planet. But also I want to highlight a couple of areas where I think people can do more work if you're wondering where the pressure points are. And I'll introduce that by doing a little bit of background work on what affected me as in my youth and go on from there. I grew up in Seattle area, and I was at age 3 dipping my toes in the ocean for the first time, but my family was big into camping, and I had a grandfather and uncles and cousins pictured here who spent a lot of time fishing and hunting near the Columbia River. So it was early on in my blood. I had a forest in my backyard and played in it a lot. And in 5th grade, went to a camp called Camp Waskowitz. All 5th graders got to spend a week learning about nature in the Cascades. And in fact, it was an old CCC camp that was converted for this purpose. A fabulous gift to everybody that grew up in my school district and many others. And we got to learn from the best, including a fellow named Harry Lemon, who was a retired botanist, taught us the name, scientific name of the Douglas fir. We had treasure hunts and skits, and we learned about nature in a very intimate way. We were also given trees to take home with us, Douglas firs, to plant in our backyard. And 50 years later, there were contests to see who had the biggest one. It's symbolic that these trees that we planted, and actually trout that we also put in the streams, continued to give and to represent the lasting impact of these early experiences in nature. And for me, it didn't stop with the forest in my backyard. I decided to pursue a graduate degree studying the behavior of sea lions here on the Channel Islands, San Nicolas Island. And after that, I went to the Smithsonian Institution for a postdoc and got funding from National Geographic Society to do research on a very rare species of seal, the Juan Fernandez fur seal, which no one had studied before. In the course of my work with National Geographic, I actually got to work with Greg Marshall, inventor of CritterCam, and I was the first person to put one on a marine mammal. I'm sharing this clip, it's 2 minutes long, just to give you a sense of the wonder and the things that we still don't know about the animals that live on our planet. And the CritterCam has been one of those tools that's really opened my eyes and the eyes of a lot of others.
Probably in touch with you in the next day or two to check and see how these other females are doing. They're about ready to go to sea. Okay, bye-bye, John. Thanks again. I'll talk to you in a day or two. This is Juan Fernandez Islands Clear. The satellite transmitters tell us where the females go when they leave the islands. But we're also hoping to use a new device that gives us a picture of their underwater world when they're at sea. How's she doing? And that device is called CritterCam. CritterCam is a videotape recorder enclosed in underwater housing, and it allows us to get film from the seal's point of view. It's almost like the seal is our cameraman for the day. Flip her, right, flip her up. I was amazed at the CritterCam tape because it was like the wildest roller coaster ride I'd ever been on, seeing this female and what the gyration she goes through when she crashes through the surf. And to see the spinning footage and the turns and the twists and how fast they happen made me realize that these animals have a completely different sense of equilibrium and space when they're traveling through the water. Any human that went on that ride would probably, lose their lunch in a minute.
So I learned with this footage and with subsequent work with CritterCam on blue whales, sperm whales, on the variety of different species, 50 in total have carried these camera systems. I learned that there's a lot we've yet to know, especially in the marine environment, about how these animals survive, basically. And with that imagery came an excitement of finding ways to hook people on the notion that we really have to safeguard our precious natural heritage. The work on CritterCam was just a part of my job. I got to give grants to conservationists around the world. I also occasionally traveled on National Geographic trips and lectured about marine mammals in particular, and saw that, especially the way National Geographic and Lindblad did the work, that there was a way to do travel that actually gave back to the places that you visit. And so this introduction to travel through being a lecturer on board and supporting the relationship with Lindblad opened my eyes to the great amount of work that we needed to do in terms of awakening travelers and people managing destinations to creating a healthy relationship between travelers and the destinations they love. The fellow who ran the Center for Sustainable Destinations, Jonathan Turtellow, was my mentor. I oversaw the center, but I learned so much from him about the importance of tourism as a focal point for planetary well-being. And he's still a leader today. The work he did with National Geographic included initially a concept called geotourism, which you can read is focused on maintaining the character of a place through tourism. And that includes the environment, the culture, the food, the heritage, the built infrastructure, architectural heritage, but mostly, most important, the well-being of residents. So the place you park your dollar when you travel has everything to do with how healthy that destination can be and how you benefit also in the process. So Jonathan taught me about geotourism. He had a huge impact on the global audience. Traveler magazine at the time was the most widely read magazine on the planet, and he developed a destinations rated series where he took 400 professionals and went through, in this case, 130 plus destinations to evaluate each of them and rank them, which obviously is a wake-up call to each of the destinations featured. And they were classified in 3 categories. And, you know, the fjordlands in Northern Europe always came out well. And unfortunately, the Costa Brava in Spain, where the beach is strip malled and overrun, came out not so well. And people brought those ratings to the bank and tried to affect change. So it was really a good way to contribute to this dialogue. You might wonder, okay, where are we going now? Because in the previous couple of years, the term over-tourism was a big concern. You can see the numbers from 2012 up to 19 going from 1 billion to 1.5 billion international tourist arrivals. Of course, the pandemic has hit everyone and it's been disastrous, but the anticipated regrowth is expected in only 4 years and to levels that will meet and then quickly exceed the 1.5 billion. So we have to be on guard to make sure that during this hiatus, people are thinking about how they can manage the tourism flood effectively and make it a good thing for the places that are visited. If you go to Barcelona, you'll see signs like this, or at least you would. Why call it tourist season if we can't shoot them? And the same feelings are held by people in Venice, where their city's overrun by cruise ships, and many other locales around the world. So we need to think about how we can travel in a way that actually doesn't create strife, but rather gives back to the community and creates a positive and virtuous loop, if you will. Tourism dollars voting for a positive change in the locales. That includes eating local, that includes celebrating local cultures, surely getting money into the pockets of people who are owning local businesses, doing work in carbon, which I'll mention later. The example I'll bring to you, which touched me in my work at Geographic, was a visit to Tiamo Lodge, which is on South Andros Island in the Bahamas. And it's long been recognized as a kind of a hallmark sustainable tourism site. The locale is teeming with wildlife and beautiful experiences. You'll see an endangered land iguana, which my wife got to see up close and personal. I helped these kids know what this unusual squid was that washed ashore on the beach there at Tiamo. One of the great experiences they offer that's quite local is a tour of a blue hole nearby with a nature trail, and it's given by a woman named Barbara Moore, who is a local. I mean, she grew up on the property that she tours you with, and she talks about medicinal herbs and foods that her grandmother taught her how to use as she grew up on South Andros. And not only did she make a living from giving these tours, but she expanded my appreciation for what South Andros really was. And it wasn't just a beach where I went to park myself and get a tan. Now, you can travel in all sorts of ways. National Geographic does it right because if you take, for example, if you're lucky enough to take a around the world by private jet trip, each place that you stop at celebrates a local expert that is supported by National Geographic. And not only that, but the fare that you pay goes back in part to the society to fund the next generation of explorers. When you go to Cusco, which I did, you get to meet Nilda Kalanyalpa, who was supported by a grant from the Conservation Trust, which I used to run. And Nilda single-handedly revitalized the weaving trade in the Sacred Valley near Cusco. And tourists can go and take part in not only her great talks about the weaving traditions, but also dye the yarn yourselves and meet the weavers and even purchase their goods. So you're giving back to the 150 or so weavers who have found a business through tourism that celebrates their heritage. So it's a fabulous example of tourism done right. Another example that I like to bring up is the National Geographic Student Expeditions, which brings high school age kids to locales around the world, and a couple weeks long visit. In this case, I'll tell you about was to the cloud forest in Mindo, Ecuador, and we stopped at a butterfly farm, which was an amazing experience. But the insect celebration didn't end there. In the lodge we stayed at, it was just surrounded by native vegetation, and we were playing pool at an outside hall, and I got nailed in the head by this insect, which is about 1 inch long and very heavy, and I had no idea what it was. I was really quite shocked. So we went after identifying it and took a picture, and those of you who live in the southern US may know that this is a mole cricket. But none of the 18 students were familiar with it. We weren't. We could go online to iNaturalist. It's an app that you can download for free, and uploaded the photograph, and were able to identify the mole cricket and read all about this crazy insect species that I didn't know about. It digs burrows. It has a huge call, the males do, from its burrow that echoes out to attract the mates, and obviously it flies into people's heads on occasion. But it was, quite a discovery, and it kind of leans toward the other area of interest that I mentioned, citizen science. The world is your oyster with iNaturalist. Not only do you get to upload these observations of your own, but they go into a very, very large database and become, with validation of observing scientists, they can become actual legitimate scientific observations. So this is a very cool tool. So cool, in fact, that I took after the founder of this program, Scott Laurie, and he became the primary actor in a BioBlitz series that we did with the U.S. National Park Service. And we did 10 of these over a 10-year period. And every year we sent kids into nature with an expert. Could have been an owl expert, insects with a light trap, could have been on the coastline, listening for birds, even, occasionally encountering these wild desert centipedes that are absolutely frightening. But in every case, kids were often exposed to the wonders of nature with people who really knew it. In Santa Monica, we went down to the Malibu Lagoon, and that was where one of the most striking experiences of my whole history of BioBlitz occurred, because we had a gathering of about 10 kids, elementary school and middle school kids, who were bussed in from the LA Unified School District to take part in these surveys. And there was this group of 10 or 12 of them huddled, and they counted 1, 2, 3 and yelled, "Thank you," to their teachers. And it turned out, after I talked to the teachers, I learned that only half of them had ever had their feet in the water, in the ocean. And so this idea that these citizen science efforts can open doors and open minds is absolutely true. And in the course of our 10 BioBlitzes, we built the idea year after year until the 2016 centennial, where we had 300 US national parks participating, and with 100,000 observations of animals and plants, organisms around the US national park system. So quite a success. And the gift keeps on giving, because there's now an annual city nature challenge. One just ended on May 3rd. I think Cape Town came out as the top score with 72,000 observations. Washington, D.C. was second, and overall 1.2 million observations of species around the planet took place during this particular challenge. And if you want to take part in one, there's one going on right now, the Backyard Bio, which Joe can tell you about. It's ending in this month, but all you have to do is go on iNaturalist and do a hashtag to identify it as a backyard bio observation, and then you're golden, and it gets counted toward this particular subset of citizen science. So you should go online and take a look for that if you're interested in playing along, which I highly encourage you to do. Now, a final point, and I'm going to try to pull this together if I can, because every place on the planet is a possible place for you to visit and also to observe. And these two approaches I'm talking about, sustainable travel and citizen science, can be done together. In Palau, which is a very, very rich biodiverse region, they're actually focused on becoming the world's first carbon neutral destination. So by traveling there and by enrolling in their carbon calculator and by buying their foods and other products that are moving toward local production, you can actually diminish the carbon footprint, and the money that goes into this fund with the carbon calculator actually is invested back in Palau and the region to increase the carbon offset function of, say, mangrove growth and preservation. So this kind of travel is a way for you to become an actor in biodiversity conservation, and for you to think about yourself as having the world as your backyard, not just the forest in my case, but rather every step you take, whether it's the carbon you emit and the consumption, that the food that you consume, it all has an impact. And through citizen science and through sustainable travel practices, I hope that you will re-envision yourself as a global actor that's entirely empowered for positive change and biodiversity conservation. So I'll leave it at that, Joe, and maybe there's still time for a question or two.
I think we can definitely do that, John. Thanks so much for that great presentation. You know, a few points really hit me. Thanks for pointing out the backyard bio. I just checked a quick update on the site. I've had over 30,000 observations of over 6,000 different species. So that's pretty cool. I think when we did our first little pilot with classrooms in September, we had about 11,000 observations. So triple the observations. That's pretty awesome.
How do I get this screen to go back to the two of us, or can you do that for me? Thanks. Yeah, no, good for you on the backyard bio. You know, I can't imagine you doing it at the same time you're doing this festival, but, you know, wonders never cease. Congratulations.
All right. And yeah, I'm so glad you talked a little bit about citizen science and how it seems to be becoming more and more a part of travel. There's a couple that jump to my mind right away. I know there's a great opportunity heading to the north, up to the North Pole, where you can get out and measure melt pools and things like that. And then there's another great one down Antarctica with phytoplankton collection, collecting samples, sending them back, and then getting great stuff from there. And the feedback just seems to be incredible. People love to travel, but they love to travel with a purpose. And
yeah, and it's funny because you can just starting to hunt for things and talking to people, it opens up a whole different world. You know, it's like not everybody's asking, well, where do I go to find cool insects here, when, you know, you're in a particular locale, or birds, or do you know somebody who's an expert on that I can go on a trip with? You know, those kinds of questions can be door opening and really enrich your travels. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then again, I'm glad you touched on Lindblad. It's just an amazing company. I had the privilege as a Grosvenor Teacher Fellow to head to the Galapagos, and what a special place on earth with a really special organization.
Yeah, and the organization is particularly special because the people that they support, the grants that Lindblad gives in any locale, come on board the ship, and they actually lecture on what those travelers are effectively supporting. So you get a sense of where your dollar is going just by traveling with Lindblad. And that to me is magic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's kind of a theme that's kind of started to come out a little bit in this festival, along with a few other ones, is that tourism doesn't have to be a bad thing. When done properly, when done sustainably, it protects habitat. It gives people livelihoods and a real incentive. I mean, most people don't want to destroy their home and their nature. Sometimes it's just a matter of need. So sustainable travel is a great opportunity in a lot of spots.
And sometimes you can be an ambassador. So if you know certain skills and you have met people in your travel who are local and need support, once you get home, you can keep up relationships. You can actually be an ambassador of sorts for, assisting right-minded development. So, there's so much potential in this area.
Yeah. So with the world hopefully slowly opening up again, is there somewhere on your list where you'd like to get to and explore and try something new maybe?
Well, I'm very interested in the Federated States of Micronesia. I don't know if how much you know about this locale, but it's they're supported by the U.S. government with the Compact of Free Association that is ending very soon, and the financial pressures it hopefully will be renegotiated, but the financial pressures are high, and fisheries is a primary source of funding, and tourism has not yet happened there to a large degree. And I'm hoping that there can be some strategic thinking there that will pave the way for this kind of beneficial relationship with the traveler. There's a site called Nan Madol that's a really UNESCO World Heritage site. There's fabulous diving, and there's really interesting culture that is not fully understood. So the Micronesia is going to be my next spot. It's hard to get to. That's the reason it's underdeveloped, but I'd like to go there next.
Well, you had me at diving. Anywhere there's good diving, that's a place to go. And as fate would have it, we're connecting tomorrow with Willie Koska, who's the director of Our Micronesia. So we're going to go live to the Federated States of Micronesia, and we're going to learn about a little of the ocean conservation work that they have on the go.
Well, I've been in conversations with Willie and have known him for quite a few years, so you should ask him what he's doing in sustainable tourism and see what he has to say. But I think he's very interested. It's just a matter of finding how to do it.
All right, excellent.
Okay,
well, John, great to host you 2 days back to back. Thanks so much for the great interview yesterday, and thanks for the great insight and into a little bit of your personal travel as well, but how it can really open up doors and opportunities. Well,
thanks for making it happen and for your great questions, and Godspeed on the rest of this fabulous event.
I can't believe we're almost through day 2. Wild. Awesome. Thanks so much, John. Have a great rest of the weekend.
All right. Take care. You too.
All right. See ya.
Bye.